Welcome to the Cashflow Couple podcast. I am your hostess with the mostest, Wendy Williams. How you doing? Along with my husband, John Williams.
In the house.
What?
And already we talked about this on the last thing, this copyright thing. You know, we were talking about having like the cool intro music.
Oh, yeah. We need some cool intro music.
Now, granted, you are Wendy Williams.
That's right. Oh, am I not allowed to say the how you doing?
I have no idea.
Ooh, we should probably look that up.
We worry about totally different things. Actually, I worry about things and you just don't worry about it.
No, I really don't. I really could care less.
Our personalities are different in that
Couldn't
respect.
care less. Could care less. Couldn't care less. Well, here we are. Whether you care if I said that or not, I'm going to say it. Anyway, how you doing? Did I just get in trouble again?
I kind of want to talk about it a little more, actually. But go ahead. We can save that conversation for later.
So last podcast, we talked about the Cashflow 101 workshop that we do. And John actually we just had one just yesterday that I couldn't go to because we had an impromptu family reunion of sorts. My 90-year-old grandfather came up from Florida. I got to see him, and my niece came down from Michigan with her little baby. So it was neat. It was neat to see everybody, but I couldn't go to the workshop. So John had to host the Cashflow Couple workshop by himself yesterday. How did that go?
Yeah, so I was the Cashflow half couple yesterday at the workshop. So we're recording this on a Sunday. Our events are on Saturday afternoons. And so it was actually a good turnout. We had a pretty good time. We tried some different strategies.
That's awesome.
That we hadn't tried before. So that was fun. And I believe everybody actually escaped the rat race.
Awesome.
That showed up.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was a cool time.
That's cool.
I enjoyed it. You would have enjoyed it if you were there.
Yep. I was there in spirit.
But family is good too. How
Yes.
many generations were there?
5 generations were there.
5 generations.
Yep.
That's incredible.
But I know, right? It was really cool to see my 90-year-old granddad. I hadn't seen him in a long time. He looks fantastic. He looks really good for 90.
Yeah. Something about that just came to me was, we talk a lot about generational wealth.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see 5 generations there and to think, what we're building together today, hopefully will last that long.
Right.
Hopefully 5 generations down, what we're doing today will be a legacy for them.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool to think about?
Yeah, that is cool to think about. Yeah.
And you saw it in person yesterday.
Yep, sure enough.
So that's pretty
Wow.
cool.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Good parallel there, John.
It's just something that came to me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So key the Matrix music
Key
that we want. Or Matrix-y music.
Matrix.
We can't use the Matrix music.
So John got to do the workshop yesterday, and one of the things about the workshop is that you can draw these market cards.
Well, they're the deal cards.
Oh, the deal cards.
Yeah.
You can draw these deal cards, and it's either a big deal or a small deal. And if you listen to the last podcast, we explained that a little bit. But there's on these deals, it shows how much an asset cash flows. So we want to talk about cash flow on this podcast today and how they don't even really talk about it in the Cashflow 101 game. All they have on there is mortgage and cash flow, right?
Yeah. So it was something we were discussing earlier that while the, on the last podcast we talked about this, while the game does parallel real life very well, and it allows you to try different strategies and things like that do apply to the real world. One of the things it doesn't do, and it probably by necessity to make it simpler, but if you draw a card, like for example, I have one here in front of me. It's a 3-2 house, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath is what that means. It costs $45,000. The mortgage is $43,000, which means you have a down payment of $2,000. And then it just says down here, it cash flows $250.
But it doesn't say how it came up with that $250.
Right. So the 250 is just magical.
Right.
Right. It's not that there aren't numbers behind that, but in the course of the game, it's just easier to say, okay, we did all the calculations for you.
Right. Yeah.
And it calculates to 250.
Right. Well, so let's talk about those magical, mystical numbers behind the calculation.
Right. Like how do you get from
$43,000 to
Cashflow's 250?
Cashflow's 250. Right. Like, what do those numbers look like?
Right. So, and one of the things that bothers me about this card a little bit is what you might think or infer is that the mortgage costs a certain amount, and that's your only expense. I think lots of people actually make that mistake in real estate, especially if you become an accidental landlord. You know what that means? You ever heard that term before?
I think I have, yeah.
It's like somebody that had to move for whatever reason and couldn't sell, and so they just
decided to rent it out.
Right. And so at that level, you're not really a real estate investor. You just kind of had to do it by necessity or by accident, right? So you become an accidental landlord.
And they're only thinking about their mortgage that they got from the bank was their only expense.
Right. So you're saying, my mortgage is, to make it easy, my mortgage is $1,000. I can rent it for $1,200
and make $200. But
that's not reality. That's not
reality, right? Because there's lots of other expenses. So let's go through the basics of how to determine if an asset is cash flowing or not.
Yeah, like how do you get to this
right
250
and
number?
Really actually is quite basic. I mean, really all it is income minus expenses is cash flow. So let's break down what income means. And I think most people will say that income is the rent. I mean, what amount of money per month are you bringing in from rent? Somebody's paying you to live there. So that's what income is. I mean, there could be all sorts of things like you charge extra per parking, or you charge extra for laundry, or you charge extra for internet, whatever. But let's just say for simplicity's sake that we're just talking about rent, just to make it easy.
Right. And I think it's a good point to make. I mean, we're in the game, so we tend to overcomplicate things that should be very simple.
It's kind of nice to get back to the basics, isn't it?
It is good to get back to the basics.
This is good for us.
But even for you and I, as you were describing income, you couldn't help but say,
right. I don't know why.
It's more than rent. It's because we are constantly educating about different ways to generate income.
Yes, and it's all been of our experience.
And part of it's experience too, right? So yeah, there you could have a apartment building that has a laundry room in it,
right,
and it generates income, or all these other things. But it's that's getting into the weeds, so to speak.
So let's get out of the weeds.
Yeah,
we don't want to be weedy. So let's come back in.
With that said, this discussion will be more basic in general.
Yes, in general. So
please don't send us letters saying you missed this fine point on income or expenses.
Okay.
This is the way we do it. This is the way we understand it. Our podcasts
it's easy to explain.
Kind of us sitting around in the basement discussing things. So sometimes we don't cover all the points. Okay. But these are the basics. This is enough to make you understand how do you get to the 250.
Right. Yeah. So income is rent, and expenses. Now, there's some expenses that you can just pretty much guarantee that you're going to have.
Is that a Hickory term? Guarantee?
You can guarantee. Don't edit that out. That's good stuff.
Oh.
So you can guarantee that you're going to have taxes and insurance. So you're always going to have to pay taxes. There's just no way that you're going to get out of doing that.
The tax man cometh.
Always. You've got to have insurance. If you don't, then you're crazy. Why would you not insure your asset? That doesn't make any sense to me. You have to account for insurance. Maintenance, there's always something's going to happen. Some toilet's going to get clogged up and you're going to have to replace some pipes. I mean, every time somebody moves in and out, you've got to do paint and carpet in the least. You've got to account for HVAC systems. Every once in a while, you're going to have to replace. Maybe it's going to be a big ticket item like a roof.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it could be anything. I mean, maintenance is a fact of life of owning property. You know, it's like trying to own a car and saying, I never do maintenance.
right, yeah.
Yeah, you do. You got to change the oil. You got to.
Right. Hell, our air conditioning in our own house went out. Was it last week or the week before last?
Last week or the week before.
Yeah.
And so you got to call the guy to come. Now, granted, John always goes in the attic because it's in the attic. The unit's one of those that's in the attic. John's going to go up there and look at it. And I'm going to go maybe watch some YouTube videos about maybe
see if you can fix it
see if I can
yourself.
figure out what it's going to be.
Yes.
You know, this is life in the Williams household. Wendy
John
says,
up in the attic.
this is the way this goes down. Wendy's like, no, it's really hot last night. I'm not sure there's air coming out. Now, she knows damn good and well there's no air coming out from the vents upstairs. But she puts it that way. She says, you know, I was a little warm. And, you know, I'm not sure that's working quite right. And
Maybe you should go check that out.
you know, yeah, would you mind looking into that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
That'd be
okay.
awesome.
So I go look at the thing and watch my YouTube videos and trudge around for a couple hours. And then I decide, you know, I'm just calling the guys that know what the hell they're doing
Yes, please.
and letting them do it. But to Wendy's credit, she never says, will you call the maintenance guys? She always says, it's a little warm. So she gives me, she knows me long enough that it would be kind of insulting to say,
call the maintenance guy.
you need to call somebody because you don't know what the hell you're doing.
Right.
She gives me the chance to figure that out on my own.
Yes.
Is it frustrating to you that it takes 3 hours for this to happen?
No, it really is not,
Okay.
because I know that you enjoy the journey.
The journey.
Yes.
The investigation.
The investigation.
Some like
Yes.
CSI.
Yes.
HVAC.
HVAC. That's
That's
awesome.
funny. Okay.
Where the hell were
That got
we?
wet. We were talking about maintenance.
Okay, maintenance, right.
That's one of those other things you can guarantee.
Yeah, guarantee. You can guarantee. And we guarantee that we're going to have to spend 10% of the rent, of the monthly rent on maintenance.
Yeah, so we base
It's a good
everything.
rule of thumb.
We base everything based on
The monthly income.
rent.
The monthly income, yes.
Yeah.
So 10% maintenance, allow 10% as a good rule of thumb for maintenance. Vacancy is something that we always save for as well. Count as an expense as well, and we count 10% for vacancy because people move. I mean, you're always going to have somebody coming in or out. I mean, one person leaves, you're going to have like 2 weeks of nobody living there while you paint and do the carpet in the least before somebody else can move in. So that's 2 weeks of you not getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be vacancy. You know, even if you have somebody that has a year lease, people break leases all the time.
Yeah.
You know, they decide they can't live there for whatever reason.
We just had that happen in one of our rentals.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we didn't lose income on that one though.
Yeah, there was another girl living there, so
They were roommates, and one of the roommates left. But should the other one decide they want out too, then there's going to be vacancy. You know, it's a fact of life. You know, I've talked to people that say, "Well, I never have any vacancy." You know, they've lived there for 10 years and they never moved out. And I guess for those people, they haven't had vacancy in 10 years. You know, if you have a tenant for 10 years, you don't have vacancy, but that's not the norm. You know, and to keep somebody in a property for 10 years, you're probably cutting corners somewhere else. Like you're not charging market rent or something. So, you know, vacancy is an expense, whether it's vacancy or not.
Right. And it's always a good idea to at least account for it.
Yeah, I mean, that was a thought I had the other day with that lady is she's like, well, I don't have any vacancy, but I'm charging in this case, it was $300 under market rent. So she's still paying for vacancy.
She's charging $300 below market rent?
She's charging $300 below market rent because, see, here's the thing. In her mind, she doesn't have to account for vacancy in her property because it's been rented for 10 years. My argument is it's stayed rented for 10 years because it's $300 under market rent. She never raised the rent.
Why would she never raise the rent?
Because that's how she accounts for vacancy.
Okay, gotcha.
She doesn't call it vacancy, but she just undercharges for rent.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Right. So
it would be the same thing as if she
right.
charged market rent and had
right.
renters over time.
Right.
So either way you want to look at it, there is vacancy expense.
Yeah. Regardless of whether you just don't collect that much rent or if you're paying for vacancy.
Yeah.
People are moving out.
That was kind of
interesting.
A revelation I had listening to that.
Huh, that's interesting.
Is because my first thought was she's crazy. Why would you do that? But she's saying, I want to prepay vacancy, basically, is what she's saying.
Right.
And so it's just, but either way, you have to account for it.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, at least 10%. Another thing that you can guarantee that you're going to have to pay.
I didn't know it was going to go this way. Everything's like guarantee. I kind of like that, though. The bullet points are guarantee.
Guarantee. I can't remember what that's from. Maybe a KFC commercial. I don't remember, but whatever.
I think it's from Hickory.
Just a Hickory thing. Is property management. And I really do not want somebody calling me at 2:00 in the morning about some toilet that has been clogged up.
I don't either.
That's just not something that I would rather pay somebody, a professional that knows what they're doing and, has the nice office and
well, not only that, it's not really that expensive.
It's really not.
The property managers around here are around 10%.
That is a price that I am willing to pay so that I don't have to do leases. I don't have to do background checks. I don't have to
answer the phone. And all I get is a paycheck every month. Right. I mean, and
they take care of all of it for me.
I think it's a special person that enjoys property management.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, and I think that's one of the
Bless them.
That's the first thing you hear from people that don't want to get into real estate is like, I don't want to be a landlord.
They don't want to be a landlord.
I don't want to deal with tenants and toilets.
I don't want to have to deal with tenants and toilets. That's exactly right.
So we don't.
Exactly.
We pay somebody to do it, but it's not expensive relative to the amount of work that goes into it.
It's worth it.
That for $1,000, say, it rents for $1,000, they're charging 10%. That's $100 a month.
Yeah, that's so totally worth it.
It's totally worth it. Totally worth it.
Oh yeah, totally. So we got taxes and insurance, maintenance, vacancy, property management, and if you have a bank loan, then you have to include debt
or any kind of loan. But I wanted to go back and talk about the property management thing.
Oh, you're not done with property management?
No, there's another point I want to make about property management besides just it's worth it and you don't want to do it yourself because there are so many people just like the folks that don't account for vacancy.
Oh yeah, they don't account for
property management either because they say, "Oh, well, I just manage it myself." Right.
Yeah. Which means
to me it means you don't value your time.
You don't value your time.
If you do it yourself, your time is worth something.
Yep.
Frankly, you're probably not as good at it as a professional either. So you're not going to be as efficient.
Yeah, that's another good reason to have property management. There's no way that I would be able to manage even multiple properties.
Well, even one.
Or even one for that matter.
I mean, my point is, and here's another point. Even if you only had one, say you only had one, you can manage it yourself, great. But you didn't account for it in your cash flow calculations, right? You didn't account for it as an expense. What happens if you get sick and you can't manage it?
You're going to have to pay somebody else to do it for you.
You're going to have to pay somebody else to do it. And if you didn't account for it,
now you're losing money.
You might be losing money. Even if you're going to manage it yourself, still account for it as an expense.
Yeah, because you got to pay yourself.
Pretend
for
like
managing it.
your time is at least worth what their time is worth.
Good call, John. Yeah, great.
From my perspective.
Huh?
So, I mean,
I've never thought about that before.
it's a reason to do it. I think a lot of people want to leave it out because the numbers don't work if they don't leave it out.
Right.
Like a lot of these expenses, like vacancy.
Sure.
You know, and so our message is, and what we've learned from, you know, folks that do a lot more than we do is you have to account for these things as a minimum. And if you don't, you're basically a fool.
Fool. I pity the fool.
I pity the fool.
Pity the fool that doesn't account for property management.
Yes.
Can we use this? This is a total another copyright.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. See, now I'm rubbing off on you. But wouldn't that be cool if somebody's sitting down and they've got this property that they're trying to figure out all the expenses on, and they just cross that out and be like, you know, I think I'll just manage it myself. And then Mr. T comes in,
out
like, what's that commercial with the Kool-Aid?
The Kool-Aid, yeah.
Do they still show that?
I don't have any idea. We don't watch TV anymore.
But you know, he busts through the wall and he's like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
What if Mr. T like busts through the wall and he's
I
like,
pity the fool.
I pity the fool that doesn't account for property management. That would be great. We should do that.
That could be a commercial.
I mean, Mr. T, it's probably
Is he still alive?
I think so. I mean, it can't be that expensive to get him to appear.
That's true.
I mean, the last thing he did was like the A-Team.
I love Mr. T, man. He was awesome. The A-Team.
You didn't watch the A-Team.
I had a younger brother. He's like 18 months younger than me. So yeah, I watched the A-Team and G.I. Joe and He-Man and what was the helicopter one?
Airwolf.
Airwolf, yes. Airwolf. Yes. Really?
Yeah, I probably can't sing that song either.
Really? Well, I mean, we're just having all kinds of copyright
Not that the ability
today.
isn't there, because I thought the tone was right on.
Oh yeah, that was spot on, dude.
But you probably can't use the actual song. But Airwolf was awesome.
Boo. I did like Airwolf. It was pretty cool. And Knight Rider. Oh my God, who could forget Knight Rider?
So see, this is what happens when we sit down to talk real estate.
Yeah,
somebody will say, pity the fool.
Pity the fool.
Somebody else will say, Mr. T would be awesome. And then we talk about Airwolf, Knight Rider, He-Man, G.I. Joe, and your younger brother.
Yeah.
So this is the way our conversation
is. This is the way it is in the basement.
In the basement.
Yep. So what the hell were we just talking about?
We were talking expenses.
Right,
so we
right,
did
right.
Taxes and insurance.
And you said you wanted to go back to property management because I had already moved on to debt.
Yes. Which may or may not be an expense.
Right.
And if you buy it cash, it's not an expense. But we normally have some sort of debt service on the properties that we have.
Right. Yeah.
So it's natural for us to say there's debt service.
Right.
And that's your final expense. And then whatever's left over is truly what
cash flow
you can count on.
Right.
Maybe that's a good way to put it.
Oh, to count on, yeah.
Because let's face it, you know, every month you don't have maintenance. Every month you don't have, well, you have property management, but you don't have vacancy. So in reality, your check is bigger some months and it's smaller some months. But what we're saying is account for those things and only count on the average. You know, only count on what you can expect to receive over the long haul.
Yeah, because you're not going to be holding a property for just 1 month.
Right. I mean,
you got to look at it in years almost.
Yeah. I mean, those are broad numbers. I mean, 10% per month. It doesn't mean every month you're going to spend exactly $100.
Right.
But it means that every month you better be putting $100 in a separate account.
Right. And that's what we do. We put it into an account and it just builds up. And whenever we need to hit the maintenance or vacancy account, then we can go ahead and plug those numbers in and it still works.
Right. It adds to the predictability.
Right.
It means that $250 is coming every month, whether it's coming from the tenant or whether it's coming from the vacancy account.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So that we know we're getting the 250.
So, right. Exactly. So we're always going to be getting paid.
You're always going to be getting paid. and on the maintenance, we put aside the amount.
We did the exact same thing with
it's a water heater that's $1,000. Well, then you've saved up enough to pay for it. That's the idea. Those are the basics, and that's how you get to that 250. It's all the income in general, all the income minus all of the expenses. And the key to expenses for me is knowing what to include in there. So include everything. I think a lot of people want to fudge the expenses because they want to make the numbers work so that it looks like a deal, and don't do that. That's my message, is don't stick your head in the sand. Don't fool yourself.
Yeah. Don't be a fool.
Pity the fool.
Okay.
Look, we're getting Mr. T on the show.
Oh my God. Can you imagine?
Does he maybe invest in real estate?
Oh,
have you ever thought about that?
I've never.
What has he been doing?
I wonder if Mr. T invests.
I bet he took all the money from the A team, invested it in apartment buildings, and Mr. T knows how to do cash flow analysis.
Oh my God. We have got to find out now.
Yeah. Well, let's try contact and see if he'll come on the show.
Oh my gosh.
So if you're out there and you know Mr. T personally,
ask him if he'd come and be on our show and if he invests.
Yeah, that would be great.
I'd love
to talk to him.
I'd love to talk to Mr. T.
Even if he doesn't invest, we'll just talk to him anyway.
Yeah.
Actually, we could pay him to do the sound over or the voiceover. So every time every time we mention something like that, we could just have him come in and say, "Beautiful."
Oh my God, that would be awesome.
Wouldn't that be awesome? All right, we'll work on it.
That'd be awesome.
Future show, Mr. T.
Yeah. Excellent. So if you're interested in seeing if a deal cash flows, you're welcome to contact us. We'd love to be able to help you out with that. There's 3 ways. We have an email, John and Wendy at thecashflowcouple.com, on Facebook at The Cashflow Couple, and on our website, thecashflowcouple.com. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time.